Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. For over 150 years, ours has been a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom, many spiritual paths, and many identities. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your hopes are welcome here. Our doors are closed because our hearts are open. We're living our values of care and compassion. You can still stay connected, including Sunday coffee hour or summer groups or forums, through your e-news or visiting our website, or you can contact the staff to get connected with any of those online opportunities. This Wednesday, you can join us for an online forum at 7 o'clock, Faith in Minnesota, with organizers Catherine Lozada and Brittany Anderson from Isaiah, which is an interfaith justice organization that we've been working with for quite some time now. It's about important work to shape this November's elections with our values of justice and inclusion in Minnesota. You can find the link in your e-news or contact the office to join that forum this Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And each week, our offering goes to support people within and beyond our church. This week, 100% of our collection goes to support Family Service Rochester, providing critical support through counseling, mental health services, and trauma intervention for local families. This is critical work during these times. You can give at the link listed, uurochmn.org/give. You can also visit our website to find that. And thank you for your generosity. And finally, we are so glad today to celebrate Connie Schuelka, retiring from her music position, though staying on as congregational administrator. She'll retire from the music position officially at the end of June, and today this service in part is celebrating her. Today we celebrate more than 30 years of Connie providing music inspiration to our church on the organ, at the piano. She has been named Musician Emerita, and we are grateful to hear some of her favorite pieces of music today and express our gratitude for how she has touched generations of hearts and souls in this space and in our community. Connie, thank you. And finally, as we gather, I leave you with these words from the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes, minister of this church in the 1870s. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together.
Conrad Schuelka, Connie's son.
I'm Emily Brando Salutes, Connie's daughter-in-law.
And this is our son,
William
Schuelka. We're recording this video in Birmingham, England. We are very proud of the work that my mom, Connie, has done for the church over the years, and we wish her a very happy retirement, and I'm sure she will serve the church community in the years to come. We'd like to dedicate this chalice lighting to my mom.
Hi, Mom. Congratulations. We love you. Ready?
This is the Unitarian Universalist Church.
This is the Church of the Flaming Chalice.
This is the Church of the Open Mind.
This is the Church of the Loving Heart.
Where friends come together and share.
Where friends come together and share. Where friends come together and share. Where friends come together and share. Where friends come together and share.
They sure do.
Today, as we celebrate Connie and her 30 years of music ministry at First UU, I've been reflecting on the place of music and art in my life. My first clear memory of music was as a very young girl when my parents bought me a vinyl 78 record of Peter and the Wolf. It was my first exposure to music beyond lullabies and silly ditties, and I can still remember the specific instruments for each character in the story. 2 years ago, I heard it presented live, and I realized after 60 years that it is still part of my soul and being. My parents loved music, and although I rarely heard it performed live while growing up, I can still sing the scores of the 50s and 60s Broadway musicals and most of Frank Sinatra's canon. When we say we know a song by heart, we are saying the music is a part of us and that it can transport us across time and place like nothing else. Several years ago, Garrison Keillor brought his show to the Chautauqua Institution. At the intermission, he led a sing-along. 5,000 people, without printed or screen-projected lyrics, sang old hymns, American songs from our cultural repertoire, and silly jingles. I was standing next to a Jewish woman, and she said that she knew none of the hymns, but just listening to those gathered singing them together brought tears to her eyes. Like music, art brings us together across cultural and language barriers. One of my favorite places to go in New York City is the Metropolitan Museum of Art. People are there from all over the world as art speaks to all our common human experience. I am so appreciative that museums and galleries today are making a concerted effort to display the art of peoples whose voices have been historically underrepresented. This past week, I came across a poem by Leslie Dwight that really struck me. She writes, "What if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awakening us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change. Work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't canceled, but rather the most important year of them all." One of the hardest parts of our separation during this pandemic has been the inability to gather together in this sanctuary, one of our homes. I'm incredibly happy to just be here now, looking at your lovely pictures on the chairs and aching for the day when we can all return. One of those things we miss most during this absence is congregational singing. not just the familiar hymns, but the act of joining together in song. As we've grieved George Floyd and the others who have died unjustly, demonstrators have chanted together, created beautiful chalk art on the sidewalks and streets, constructed memorials, and adorned the new fencing around the White House with art, flowers, and signs. This is our common language and will sustain us until we can come together again in hopefully a better, more just society.
Connie, we are here among your instruments that you've played in gratitude for over 30 years of musical service.
Connie, this is for you.
Good Sunday morning. Today's story is a fun one because it centers on what happens when we find something we are very passionate about. And it's also about what happens when we go away and come back. Things may not always be what they seem. The Bear and the Piano by David Litchfield. One day in the forest, a young bear cub found something he'd never seen before. What could this strange thing be, he thought. Shyly, he touched it with his stubby paws. Plonk! The strange thing made an awful sound. So the bear left. But the next day he came back. And the day after that too. And for days and weeks and months and years, until eventually the sounds that came from the strange thing were beautiful, and the bear had grown big and strong and grizzly. When the bear played, he felt so happy. The sounds took him away from the forest, and he dreamed of strange and wonderful lands. It wasn't long before the other bears in the forest were drawn to the clearing. Every night, a crowd gathered to listen to the magical melodies coming from the bear and the strange thing. Then one night, a girl and her father came across the clearing. They told the bear that the strange thing was a piano and the sounds it made were music. "Come to the city with us," they said. "There's lots of music there. You can play grand pianos in front of hundreds of people and hear sounds so beautiful they will make your fur stand on end." The bear knew that if he left the forest, the other bears would be very sad. But he longed to explore the world beyond the woods, to hear more wonderful music, and to play bigger and better than before. And before long, the bear's name was up in bright, bright lights in the big, big city. He played sold-out concerts in giant theaters. Every night he performed with such passion and such grace to wild applause and standing ovations and huge admiration. The bear recorded albums that went platinum. He was interviewed for magazines. He won awards. He met new people every day and created headlines everywhere he went. The city was everything he had hoped it would be. But deep down, something tugged at the bear's heart. He had fame and awards and all the music in the world, but he missed the forest. He missed his old friends. He missed his home. So the bear decided to go back. He speedily crossed the river and excitedly pounded into the forest. He couldn't wait to tell his friends about his time in the city. But when the bear reached the familiar clearing, it was empty. No piano, no bears, no anything. The bear started to worry that his friends had forgotten him, or that they were angry that he had left them behind. Then a friend had stepped into the clearing. "Hello," cried the bear. "I'm back. I've missed you so much." Without a word, the gray bear ran back into the trees. "Wait," called the bear. "I'm sorry I left. Please stop." But his friend just kept running. The bear stumbled after him, moving deeper and deeper into the forest until he saw something that made his fur stand on end. For the bear had not been forgotten. His friends weren't angry, but proud. The bear realized that no matter where he went or what he did, they would always be there, watching from afar. And they had even kept the piano safe in the shade, ready for his return. So after the bear had told his friends about life in the city and the many concerts he had played, he sat down to play once more, this time for the most important audience of all. So this story is for you, Connie Schuelka, and the years you've spent making beautiful music in our sanctuary. And while we can't guarantee that the piano is just going to sit and wait for you to come back, we do know that you will always have a home here at First UU.
We are in different places, but we are still together, and we gather in a virtual way as we continue to create a place of communal caring and connection. We are enriched by the presence of each other and are drawn closer to the heart of love in this time of service and reflection. In this time together, we ask that our minds be open, our hearts welcoming, our arms embracing. We honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Barbara Anderson, serving as our caring coordinator for the last 2 weeks, arranging care for our members and friends in need. Joyce Wood and Diane Clausen will take over for the next 2, and we thank them for that. As we continue through this time of staying at home, many of us may need additional care, whether it be pastoral care, grocery delivery, or an errand run, and we encourage you to reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. We thank all of you who have offered to assist our members with these requests, and we send gratitude to you all for serving our congregation during this time. In this community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person's experience matters. Each person here has value. We lift up those whose lives are touched by sadness, by illness, by worry, or by loneliness. We revel in those who are celebrating joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all. May all of us find comfort, hope, joy, and healing strength in this community. Please hold Sue Nielsen in your heart. Sue's mother, Mary Stiles, passed away on the morning of June 12th at the age of 83 at Thorncrest Community in Albert Lea, Minnesota, after a rapid decline in health. Sue and Jim were grateful to be allowed to be with her for her last 4 days, and Sue held her hand as she peacefully passed. A memorial celebration of life was hosted by Sue and Jim at Thorncrest Community on Thursday. At this time of loss, we hold Sue and the entire family in our hearts and send healing strength. The family of Pat Neville shares the plan for a memorial service honoring Pat's life on Sunday, August 16th at 2:30 p.m. at the Rochester VFW. All are welcome to come and share in this remembrance. As we have over the last few months, we need to continue to reach out to all in our community to let them know we are still here and still holding and supporting them. We encourage you all to send cards and make calls and support local business, opening the doors of communication and community. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe deep the breath of life. Know that here you are named and you are known as beloved, as sacred, as welcome. Feel above you the ancient stars and their ancient light. Feel below you the ancient earth and its ancient turning, holding you here, now, alive, grateful for the breath of life. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence and breath together. Spirit of life and source of love, God of 1,000 names and beyond all naming. Sometimes the echoes of beauty seem distant. In a world where there is so much uncertainty, so much grief, it is hard to find a song in our heart when we can't even sing in shared space. May we hold fast to the beauty we can still find, the echoes through memory, the echoes in our hearts and bones of music and art and beauty that has touched us, changed us, saved us. Help us to find the harmonies of hope and of love so that the song of love in our heart is endless. We hold all those who suffer in mind, in body, or spirit. I invite you to bring the names that you're holding in your own heart in joy or in sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this time to speak their names. For all those names, spoken and unspoken, may we be forever grateful for the fabric of love and of life that weaves us together. May those threads hold us in love and in strength. These words of meditation come from May Sarton. Help us to bring darkness into the light, to lift out the pain and the anger where it can be seen for what it is, the balance wheel for our vulnerable, aching love. Put the wild hunger where it belongs, within the act of creation, crude power that forges a balance between hate and love. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who knew that without darkness nothing comes to birth, as without light nothing flowers. Amen.
The first reading is Music by Juhan Liiv, translated by H.L. Hicks and Juri Talvet. It must be somewhere, the original harmony, somewhere in great nature hidden. Is it in the furious infinite, in distant stars' orbits? Is it in the sun's scorn, in a tiny flower, in tree gossip, in heart music's mother song, or in tears? It must be somewhere, immortality. Somewhere the original harmony must be found. How else could it infuse the human soul, that music? The second reading is The House That Music Built by Rita Dove. This is the house that music built, each note a fingertips purchase, rung upon rung, laddering across the unspeakable world. I won't speak judgment on the black water passing for coffee, white water for soup. We supped instead each night on Chopin, hummed our grief-soaked lullabies to the rapture rippling through. Let it be said, while in the midst of horror we fed on beauty, and that, my love, is what sustained us.
I have been lucky over the years to always have access to a church and its instruments. As a teenager, I was the weekend janitor in my home church, Bethlehem Lutheran in Mankato, locking and unlocking the building for services, weddings, funerals, running the sound system, taking out and putting away chairs, wiping floors, a very helpful prerequisite to a life of ministry. And then in college, to a chapel that was almost always open, and then in seminary, and then in ministry, able always to enter a silent sanctuary in the middle of a week with nothing but me and whatever my belief in the divine was that particular day, but most importantly, the instruments, the piano and the organ and the few songs and notes I knew and learned how to play. It became a solace, a place to go when the world seemed to be upending, when my life seemed a little wild or a little wily at the moment, a place to go when a loved one was lost, to try to play a song that I knew they loved or one that I knew they would love, to lose myself in the notes and the harmonies and the notes that echoed off the quiet stone, brick, wood, those walls. When there are no words, no particular phrases or prayers or poems that could hold the moment, the notes seemed to hold it. Their echo and the echoes of music that filled that space, that had filled those spaces time and time again as people gathered around the music in joy or in grief. It wasn't as lonely as it might seem. The music that was held in those silent spaces, the echoes of those generations, there's something about these spaces, those spaces that hold things, that hold those deep down things in the very walls, in the very instruments of generations of love, support, of song and hope. Little did I know that it would become a months-long and who knows how long practice and norm of playing to an empty house, as Annie Dillard wrote. Speaking of our need, as Annie Dillard wrote, to bear witness and pay attention to our surroundings and to each other. And here we are, a liturgy that is played in segments to an empty house, an empty sanctuary. Notes and words just bouncing off the walls, only being able to be held together by a movie-making software, but mostly by the potential that they might come together somewhere for someone, that the notes, the words might land somewhere for someone clicking a link or scrolling through and stopping for a moment, lighting a candle, entering this space not in body but in spirit, knowing that the words and the music that have infused this space for generations connect us across time and space. Sometimes it is only the echoes that hold us together. And maybe that's what has always held us together. Echoes of what we have been, where we have come from, where we are yet to go. Life is composed, held together by the notes on the page. Our ways of trying to make a score of meaning in this world, to put down on paper something tangible that we can hold, reaching toward order. But we all know music isn't what's on the page, at least not entirely. It isn't really music until it flies off the page and lands in our hearts, until it moves our soul, until it creates in us the experience of it, the embodiment of it, the experience of courage and grief and hope and momentum. Touches the chords of our own spirit, and we are filled with beauty. It must be somewhere, writes the poet, the original harmony, the heart song, immortality that infuses the human soul with song. I wonder sometimes what happens to the songs when they are done. Like an earworm, they seem not to go away. When the music stops, where does it go exactly? Like Trish sharing today, the longing to be singing together again in shared space, which may be a while. So how are we holding on to the music we've already made, those moments, those songs? How do they still live after the sound fades? 30 years of playing songs and hymns on the instruments in this space, holding together grief and courage, thresholds and moments of uncertainty and hope, Connie's steady beat of tempo and heart, in a line and in a community of so many musicians who do that work. It has marked the time for us, held the time for us. And you know what? It doesn't end. It doesn't end. Even if she wants some Sundays off, the music keeps on going. It flows on in endless song. Not just because she's now Musician Emerita and has to keep playing sometimes because we need to hear her, but because that's the thing with beauty and with story and with life. It flies up off the page. Our stories, our identities move beyond just description. They live and they breathe in our souls, in our bones. The experience of it, of beauty and art, doesn't just end. We are changed by it. And therefore, so is the world. Music and harmony and song mark not just tempo on a page, but it marks the time of generations, the movements, singing for our lives on Capitol steps or in city streets, in concert halls or high school stages, that even after the music falls silent and the sound fades for a summer or for a pandemic, the echoes of how beauty changed us, well, that doesn't go away. Even and especially when the world is turned upside down and nothing would normal seem, beauty continues on because it reminds us of what we are living and fighting for. This will be our response to violence, wrote Leonard Bernstein. To make music more beautifully, more intensely, more devotedly than ever before. I first read that quote after some upheaval in the world. When I was in college, it was on my choir conductor's door. Bernstein wrote that quote after the assassination of President Kennedy in 1963. In what would be turbulent years in our country, transformative, trying, traumatic, a time being referenced now as our country seems to be in a place that has some similarities, a place of potential, of unrest and revolution, of possibility, of transformation, but still also trying and traumatic. There are songs still being sung, masked and distanced, through the streets of Minneapolis and Atlanta and Rochester, songs like Kendrick Lamar's We're Gonna Be All Right and civil rights songs that have made a way for this time, calls and responses through chants, songs familiar and ones made up on the spot for justice and hope and revolution, new songs with familiar words of resistance and possibility. One artist recently wrote in Minneapolis that after the fires calmed down and burned out, Minneapolis moved from being the city of lakes to the city of murals, a city of art, similar to what Trish shared today, where boarded up stores are holding images and words of art made by the community gathering there in grief and also in power, offering signs of justice and possibility of transformation. Altars of flowered are gathered not only in memory on the street, but between neighbors and at storefronts and anywhere there is a need for beauty, which is everywhere. There's art everywhere in Minneapolis and beyond. Let it be said, writes the poet that Trish read for us today, while in the midst of horror, we fed on beauty. And that, my love, is what sustained us. Beauty is what sustains us. It's what reminds us of the world we are working to create, to protect, to inscribe into law. Yes, sometimes the courts get it right, and then the harder work of inscribing love and justice into hearts, into more and more laws and more hearts. Like the art that survived the Holocaust in World War II, they were gone for a while, placed in protection, like the songs in our collective voices right now, gone for a while. Not because we don't need them right now, but because they are so precious. They're so sacred, so important to us. We have to keep them protected. We have to keep us protected, safe. Caretake these songs and our voices until we can sing again. And until then, we hide them away from our shared space, yes, but the echoes of generations live strongly within us. The echoes in our hearts hold them. The echoes in these spaces hold the songs for us. We let the screens hold them from a distance. And we let the walls of this sanctuary hold those echoes of so many years. In these days, I've been holding an old scripture phrase from the Apostle Paul. We do not know how to pray, but the Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words. Sighs too deep for words. Has that been your song some of these days? Not sure what words could possibly hold the day, hold your heart, hold the moment, hold the uncertainty. Sighs too deep for words. A phrase that's guiding every preacher right now. Maybe that's what music and art, what beauty, what love has always been. The sighs, the breath, the harmony, the music that are too deep for words alone, or live under even the most beautifully crafted words that are shared. And that's where the soul resides, in the echoes that are held in the most quiet spaces, those unknown futures, those uncertain worlds. And yet I believe, and can you hear it, the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation, that is ringing through all the tumult and the strife. It sounds an echo in your soul. That's where it has always lived. And the song there, it's endless. Connie, you have given this church gifts that have and will echo for generations. Songs to hold hearts and souls in joyful Sunday mornings and in grief-stricken memorials, at thresholds of life and at death, to remind us of beauty and song and that it is complicated, heart-wrenching, and heart-healing to live in this world. Your steady beat of song and spirit has marked the time for us, and we are so grateful. Here are some words shared from Minister Emerita, the Reverend Dilman Baker Sorrells. She says, "What a pleasure it was for all those years to work together with you, Connie, to create worship services that cohered from start to finish. So often," she said, "I had no idea what music was needed." Amen, Dilman, I hear you. And she would come up with just the right thing. How fortunate we were to have Connie as a music leader in our church. Her dedication, reliability, constancy, and wide knowledge of and interest in church music was a marvelous boon to our worship. She says, "I thank you, Connie, with all my heart for the years you gave this congregation. May you enjoy this retirement from the ever-challenging and relentless weekends music leadership you offered us. Blessings," from Dilman. And here are some reflections from a few others in gratitude for your gifts of music and ministry.
So I'm out here in the wood shop and working on a little something. There's a little bird told me that after all the years of co-director of music at our church, Connie is finally retiring. And another little bird, okay, so he's a big bird, asked me if I would whip something up to commemorate the occasion for Miss Connie. And so I'm out here in the wood shop, and I got a few projects in the works, as you can see by all the saws and the dust. And when it's done, I think you're all going to be impressed. And I think, Connie, there's really no words to say the joy, the excitement that you've brought to this church through the years. I am so glad to know you and so lucky to know you. And I hope you enjoy your retirement or semi-retirement, since you're still, running the books. But you will be missed at the piano and the organ, and you're awesome. And I hope that the little knick-knack that I end up making for you out of wood to celebrate your emerita status and your years of service to our church is wonderful, and that you enjoy it as much as I enjoy making it. So with that, I say congrats, Connie, and just wait and see.
In my role as newly elected board president, it is an honor to offer our congratulations and thanks to Connie as she retires from being our co-director of music. On behalf of the board and the staff, as well as members and friends of the congregation, thank you, Connie. Thank you for the thousands of hymns you have played over the years, always with a strong melody line so that we could lift our voices singing our old favorites as well as learning new songs. Thank you for your skill on the keyboards as you move from piano to organ to harpsichord, always choosing a selection of music that was appropriate for what we needed at that moment, whether it was quiet reflection or joyful music. And thank you also for the hundreds of musicians you have invited to sing and play in our sanctuary. It was a treat to the ears. Whether it was ethnic klezmer music, jazz trio, boisterous brass, or classic flute. Such beautiful music. Thank you for sharing your gift of music with us. It has gone directly to our hearts and lifted our spirits. Thank you.
I'm here to share a few thoughts from myself and the choir for Connie on her retirement. And I'd like to start with a poem called The Accompanist. by Ken Wiesner. She's right with you in any time. You feel her soften at the moment you come in, or pull back when she knows you'll take it slow, or phrase off in an echo of your line, and always like the soft foliage beneath the bloom, or the birds that fly in and fly out before the storm, or the ticking and creaking of the house where you were born, or the rain that settles in and soothes you with its sound, or the sweet hands that work your tired back, a place that surrounds you, loves you today, and is determined to grace the swell of your song, and you thank her for shoulders and her arms that dip and sway, and her eyes that flashes, touch, and her fingers that are so brilliant, each itself an earnest musician, running like a sprite to charm the woods where you run, and the branch where you sing. I received many, many tributes from the choir to share with Connie, and there's many more than I can read today, but I'd like to start with one from my wife, Kathy Scheppel. And if you didn't know that, Kathy and I worked with Connie when I started as co-music director 19 years ago. Kathy writes, with an open heart, you have shared your deeply personal love of music through your dedicated service to First UU for more than 3 decades, and we are so grateful. Your music has helped enrich, evoke, and validate the spiritual and interpersonal connections in our church community. You and your music have also enriched our personal lives, providing comfort and many lasting memories along the way. The joy and sincere dedication with which you share art, the art of music, inspires us all. Thank you for all you have given us. Myatt Helmer shares, I would like to be sure to thank Connie for always being my check of the official A to warm up the choir at Wednesday night practice. And yes, I admit that sometimes my first attempt was slightly off. There you go, Myatt. Beth Atkinson writes, Connie has been an important part of making the choir sound as good as it does. She adjusts when we collectively veer off the written music and helps us provide support to sections that are struggling in spots. I also appreciate and admire Connie's selection of music that she learns and plays. Lots of humor and a willingness to try new styles of music. Finally, I really appreciate the guest musicians that have been brought in over the years. What a gift to all of us. She will be missed. Rod Milbrandt writes, music is a deeply spiritual activity for me, and I have greatly appreciated the music at the First UU Church since we first started coming. An essential part has been Connie's artistry on piano, organ, and harpsichord. As an occasional sub on the piano myself, I really appreciate what Connie does every Sunday. She makes it look much easier than it is. Not only does she play excellently solo, but she also can really accompany well. Reading open score, keeping an eye on the conductor, listening to the choir, etc. It has been a joy to hear her play. Barbara Anderson writes, Connie, where to even begin to put into words the incredible impact you have had on the Walden Hill Vocal Ensemble, our congregation, and to me personally. If I had to single out one memory, it would be one service when you seated yourself at the organ and we, the congregation, were waiting with anticipation for a beautiful traditional hymn or piece of classical music. Then the first few chords pulled us into a mood of quiet contemplation. Then, bam, you broke into a raucous rendition of the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. It was magical. Many congratulations on your well-deserved retirement and your designation as Music Emeritus. You will be sorely missed in your role as co-director of music. And Laurel Phelps Bowman. Connie added so much value to my choir experience with her incredible ability to play any genre of music, to stay with us during rehearsals and performances, and to remain cheerful throughout. We will truly miss her, but she deserves to retire. And I say, yes, indeed she's earned her retirement, and I'm happy to have had her as a musical teammate for almost 20 years. I'm proud of the music making and worship planning we've done together. From our early years working with Dillman Baker Sorrells, straight through to those last few years with Luke. It's been a meaningful and beautiful journey, much more than I could have imagined. I'm sad now. And whenever it is that our Walden Hill Vocal Ensemble begins rehearsing again, I will truly miss Connie in those first few moments. But I know that our music will continue to flow, not just because we found a capable replacement, but because she has shown us how. Connie's humility, competence, and grace accompanying the congregation, the choir, or guest musicians sometimes goes unnoticed because she's so good. Sometimes we even take her for granted. I know there's been many times in rehearsal I've done that, asked her to do the impossible sight-reading voice parts, or expected her to read my mind when to drop out or to come back in, or figure out what kind of rubato I want at that very moment, or where to place the final note, or where to start when I didn't tell anyone. But she knew exactly what I meant. She always knew. Connie inevitably makes things clearer, easier, and the music flows on, sounding an echo in our souls. We will miss you, Connie, but we hope to see you at church, live and in person soon. Thank you for sharing your time, talent, friendship, and wisdom with all of us.
There is gratitude too deep for words. Connie, congratulations and thank you. So I leave you with these words of gratitude and poetry, and then a final song from some special guests, but first from Rumi, who writes, "Don't worry about saving these songs, and if one instrument breaks, it doesn't matter. We have fallen into the place where everything is music. The strumming and the flute notes rise into the atmosphere, and even if the whole world's harp should burn up, there will still be hidden instruments playing. Open the window in the center of your chest and let the spirit fly in and out." And now, hit it, Matt and William.
And now William and I would like to play a song for you and dedicate it to everyone during these difficult times. Sing and don't worry about a thing, there you go. 'Cause every little thing gonna be alright. Sing and don't worry about a thing. Worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Woke up this morning, smiled at the rising sun. 3 little birds perched by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you. Ooh, take it away. Sing with me. Ready? Sing and don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Sing and don't worry about a thing. Come on. 'Cause every little thing gonna be alright. Take it away.